In 1990 the Lord revealed himself to me and told me, I am taking you to a place to show you mystery. What I will show you is the truth, that you will tell the world. Quickly the Lord raised me up like a baby, and in a blink of an eye he transported me to the Mecca. Quickly I saw that instead of landing to Mecca, we were hovering a mountainous region where I saw hills. I said to the Lord, Master, you said you were taking me to Mecca, but what are these hills? The Lord told me, my daughter, it is in these hills that Muhammad Sallam was visited by two spirit. Notice that the Lord did not say two angels but two spirit, and when the Lord said two spirit I wonder, the Lord said you are asking questions and wondering. You have to understand the Prophet Muhammad Sallam was not worshipping me the true God, but he was worshipping a false God. I am showing you these hills for Muhammad Sallam was visited in these hills by demons. Upon hearing this my heart was broken to hear these truth, and I realized that I was in error. The Lord said, it is in this place that demons visited Muhammad Sallam and gave him the Quran, the so-called holy book that will rival the Bible. Then the Lord went on to show me the grave of Muhammad Sallam. It was opened and I saw animal there. The Lord said, this is Muhammad Sallam tomb, but his soul is in hell. Back then I did not even know what hell is. I was hurt to discover these mystery of my religion. Then the Lord took me to Mecca. When we arrived there, I saw that it was massive. Honestly, the Mecca where the Kaaba is really massive. I said the Mecca is really beautiful and massive, but the Lord said to me, this is not yet our destination. I just wanted you to see, for this is where your parent come to pray. The Lord said, now we have to follow the trajectory where Muslim pilgrim go to get the blessed water. This is precisely the water used in the Catholic Church called the blessed water. The Lord took me to a cave where water was flowing, and when we stood before the flowing water the Lord opened my eyes. I did not know what was a vision or revelation, but the Lord opened my eyes and said look. When I looked deeper I saw a chameleon. This was not our earthly chameleon, it was actually a huge demon, having the characteristic of a chameleon. Behind this demon, I saw a two-head python, having red eyes, and I was seized by terror. I was about to fall but the Lord held me on the back and said, fear not, for I have come with you here to show you secret. I brought you here to show you the God that your parent worship. I am not the God that your parent worship, for they worship something else. When the Muslim pilgrim were throwing the stone on the water, I saw the demon chameleon that was collecting their stones. Finally the Lord took me to the Kaaba. I saw that we were not touching the ground for we were few meters above the ground. The Lord said, what I am gonna show you now will turn your life upside down, and when you see what I will show you here, you will have a choice to make. Now look carefully at the Kaaba. After looking I said, Lord, I don't see anything. Then the Lord rubbed my eyes 3 times in order to open my vision. Then he said, my daughter, open your eyes and look. When I look and I said, Lord, I only see people turning around the Kaaba. But the Lord said, look again and look carefully and deeply. Look deeply. Beloved, when I look again I exclaimed, Lord, I can see the signs of a snake. The Lord said, my daughter, the time has come for you to see the God that your parent worship. My dear, the Lord Jesus is really powerful. Witches and wizard can do demonstration, for the devil can imitate the Lord, but the Lord is the Almighty. He is tremendous. My dear, I saw the Lord Jesus through the tip of his finger uprooting this structure called the Kaaba. I saw this building of the Kaaba that is like a house being rooted out and suspended in space by the power of the finger of the Lord. It was an instantaneous miracle. I lifted my eyes to look up to the Kaaba that was removed from its place and suspended in the air. I was impressed by the power of Jesus Christ, and I said, wow, the Lord is really showing me who he is, how glorious and powerful he is. The Lord told me, don't mind the Kaaba, that's not the issue. I saw that despite the fact that the Lord had removed the Kaaba, people continued to move around and turn around without seeing what was beneath the Kaaba that was already removed. My dear, when I looked beneath the foundation of the Kaaba, I saw a gigantic and enormous serpent that rose from the ground. He was giant, he was beneath the Kaaba and he had a crown, which was similar to that of the Queen of England. And the Lord Jesus said, my daughter, this is the God that your parent worship. They claim to worship the true God, but they were deceived. I'm the true God. Your parent worship this serpent, who is the God of Islam. My dear brother, I saw this giant serpent turning his attention to me, and he began to talk to me. It was thanks to my dialogue with this snake that I learned that my family had sold me to this snake who was the author of their wealth. I was terrified to see the snake, but the Lord whispered in my right ear saying, "Do not fear anything, I am with you." The serpent that was watching me told me, "I am happy to see you." I was stunned. Immediately I felt the Lord's hand on my right shoulder. He said again, "Fear not." The serpent said to me, "Your parent told me that you will come to Mecca." Actually, my parent had already made preparation many years ago for my pilgrimage to Mecca. It was their project. I did not know that I was being handed to the snake. My dears, you who are in Islam, you are in error. Allah is not the true God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. I was a Muslim, yet the one who revealed himself to me and took me to Mecca to show me the truth is Jesus Christ, the Lion of Judah, the King of Kings and the Messiah, the Redeemer and the Almighty God. This demonic serpent that addressed me knew my name and my family, for the devil know us and he know the kind of family we come from. This serpent was a black snake that had 2 sharp teeth in his mouth, with his venomous tongue, and he was talking to me. The serpent told me, "You belong to me, for your parent from the paternal side of deliver your soul to me. I am your husband." I said to the snake, "What do you mean? I don't understand what you mean. Please tell me more." My brother, I was talking face to face with the principality of Islam, that is worshipped in the name of Allah, who was this black serpent, yet I was fearless because of the one that was on my right, the Lord Jesus Christ, who is stronger than the ancient serpent. This principality was unable to see the Lord Jesus Christ. The serpent told me, "Your father have offered your soul to me in sacrifice, and promised to do all it take to bring you to Mecca. Understand that you are my wife. You were to be consecrated as her." This ancient told me, "My dear, I am surprised that you have come before the date set by your parents since your birth, when they presented you to me as a sacrifice. Despite the fact that you have come to Mecca before the time set, I am still happy that you have come, and I am surprised that you have come before the set date." The black serpent did not know that I was brought here by Jesus Christ. I was overwhelmed by all this. The black serpent, the God of Islam, told me, "My bride, since you have come to me, I want to show you the treasure that I have prepared for you." And the serpent began to show me the nations of the world, the royals' family and the chiefs of state. He showed the ambassador and the government of the world. He showed me leader of all tribe and all the races. This snake told me, "All these people are my servants, for they are in my service, and since you are my bride, all these leaders will bow before you." Then the black serpent, the principality of Islam, began to show me the water. He showed me the sea and the depth of the sea, where I saw a mysterious world. I came to discover that there were kingdoms beneath the sea. The snake showed me the land and the earth. My dear, we all walk on the land, but beneath the land the serpent showed me another world hidden, that was underworld. Then the serpent showed me the mountain and hills of the world. My dears, our optical eyes only see mountain, hills and valleys, but there are gateway and portal that lead in these mountains of the world, for I saw that the Islamic snake opening a dimensional gateway in the mountain and hills of the world, which led to a mysterious world. I saw portal opening in forest, bush and cave, and this gateway led to hidden dimension and world of Satan. The serpent said to me, "All these treasures hidden from men will belong to you, my bride. Even in the sky they will bow before you, for my kingdom is extended to the sky." Then the serpent showed me all the people of the world, especially all the Muslim and unbelievers, of all races and all nations. They were men, women and children, young and old, and they were countless. And the old snake said to me, "All these people belong to me and they are my servant, and they will bow before you, my bride." Then the black serpent showed me England, where he ruled. He showed me the Islamic world. He showed me the World Bank, and his symbol was in the World Bank. I was stunned to learn that this institution belonged to him. The mark of the beast was in the World Bank. He showed me India, Egypt, China, Asian and the Western world including Africa, and he said, "All these people will serve you, for they belong to me, and all the treasure are yours. Now the time has come that we celebrate your nomination. I thank your paternal parent for allowing this to happen." Then I saw the old snakes bursting in laugh, for he was in great joy. He laughed with infernal laugh. Then the serpent told me, even the sky you will be crowns. But my bride, why are you not celebrating despite all the glory that I had given you? I am showing you everything but you are not happy." I stood silent watching him. I saw the ancient snake lowering his head and he showed me gold, treasure and jewelry and money. He said, "All this belong to you, I give them to you now." At that moment I said to the serpent, "Now can I talk?" He said, "Come on, speak, I want to hear you." I said to the serpent, "You told me that my parent marry me to you, right?" He said, "It's fact." I said, "You told me that they marry me to you when I was still a little child, right?" He said, "It's the truth." I said, "You said to me that it was my paternal side." The serpent said, "Yes, that's right." I said to the snake, "Everything that you have showed me, the royal family, the government of the World Bank and the world leaders, all these belong to you." He said, "Of course they do." I said, "You mean all the Arab country, China, Indian and all the world belong to you?" He said, "Yes they do, and they will bow before you and serve you, for I have prepared a mountain for you." As soon as the beast talked about the mountain, I saw a hill before me, and I saw innumerable crowds of the people of the world around this mountain. The serpent said, "You will sit on top of this mountain and the people of the world will bow before you and serve you, they will belong to you." I said, "It's fine and it's good, but you said that my parent married me to you when I was still a child. I was not conscious but they were conscious." He said, "Yes, that's how it happened. You are my bride, we must have wedding ceremony. All that your parent had to do is that they had consecrated you so that you become Maha, and I will do the rest." Then I said, "The ancient snake, the Principality of Islam, first and foremost I want to inform you that though my parents set a date to take me to Mecca, it is not my parent that sent me here. Do you understand?" Immediately I noticed the serpent going quiet and he was stunned. I said, "Yes, it's not them. Secondly, it's my paternal parent that married me to you. It was not my choice, for I was just a child. Thirdly, I want to inform you that I am not your wife, for I am already married." As soon as I said that I was married, I saw the fury of the serpent. I have never seen this fury. The old serpent was enraged, displaying violence. The serpent was fierce and ferocious. He was raging in fury and he was shouting, "I don't want to hear that you have a husband. I don't want to hear that, my dear." The snake was intense, complaining with his infernal and grave voice. The beast was shouting and saying, "I will not accept that you are married to someone else. I don't want to hear that lies." He was displaying ferocity. The serpent kept shouting and protesting and telling me, "It's not what your parent told me. You are my bride whether you like or not." I told the snake, "Please calm down, and listen to me. You were talking here and I was quite listening to you." I saw the serpent calming down and going quiet. I said, "It's my parent that married you to me, but I am already married." The serpent protested, "That's not true." He said, "If you were married your parent would have told me." I said to the serpent, "Do you know to whom I am married, my dear?" When I was addressing the serpent I was fearless and I had an assurance from the Lord. I was here confronting the God of Islam with an assurance. He asked me, "You are married to whom?" I said, "You really want to know?" He said, "Yes." I asked him 3 times, "Do you want to know to whom I am married?" And he said yes 3 times. He asked me, "Who is your groom?" "Whoever is your groom I will deal with him." I said, "My bride is Jesus Christ of Nazareth." When I was about to say the word Nazareth, the furious serpent turned his tail in order to strike me, but his tail went on to kill Muslim pilgrims that were turning around the Kaaba. He wanted to destroy me with violence, but he ended up killing these Muslims, who came to worship him, and in 1990 more than 1,000 Muslim pilgrims lost their lives in Mecca around the Kaaba as a result of the violence of the serpent. The incident and the stampede that killed people in 1980 happened as a result of my encounter with the Principality of Islam. Finally the Lord took me with his wings of eagle, and I saw that I was like a baby and he took me back home. When we arrived home I was no longer the size of a baby, for I regained my adult size. When I was before the serpent, I was in a normal size, but whenever the Lord was transporting me I was in the size of a baby. The Lord said, "All right, I have shown you the truth about the God that your Muslim parent worship. It's not me, the true God that they worship. You have seen the God that the Muslim and your parent worship. Now you have a choice to make." When the Lord was about to go in that intense light, I grabbed the tip of his garment, The Lord turned around and asked me, "Why are you holding my garment?" I had my head bowed and I was on my knee. I said, "Lord, I will not let you go." The Lord Jesus said, "I told you I am the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. You have a choice to make." I said, "I will not let you go because I have already made my choice. I have chosen you. I want to follow you and walk with you." The Lord said, "Just like I told Abraham to come out of the house of his father, I am ordering you to come out of the house of your father. Wherever you go, I will be with you. Those that will fight you, I will fight them. I will bless those who bless you and I will curse those who curse you." Whenever a house is built, there is always a cornerstone, and you are a cornerstone, like a black ant in a black hole. Even if you are in a dark place, I will be with you. When you decide to follow me and walk with me, you will see what I will do. I said in my heart, I have everything in the house of my parent, but the Lord said, "Just follow me and you will see my glory." The Lord said, "Ray, it is time for me to go. I will be with you, don't worry." Then I let off the Lord garment and I said, "I will follow you," and the Lord disappear. The Hajj Stampede 1990 is a stampede that occurred on July 2, 1990 in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, during the Hajj pilgrimage, presumably following a breakdown of the ventilation system in a 550-meter tunnel, where there is then a movement of panic. It caused by suffocation and crushing the death of 1,426 Muslim pilgrims.